I think we're like all, mostly grown up and we're like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like last decade or so has kind of sucked.
No wonder suicide rates are so high. No wonder people are so depressed. There's nothing to live for. There's nothing to fight for. And rightfully so. All our foreign wars are for big corporations and elites who do not give a damn about America.
Jackie, you're an ambitious woman. You're a business owner.
Yeah, you
You
slay,
own
girl.
a nonprofit. You're the CEO.
Well, she's had to.
But I
how are you
had to.
saying that
This is
Jackie
actually for
isn't
survival.
driven?
This is actually for survival.
Because she was
so I didn't
driven
want
to do
this.
so.
I didn't want to do this.
In an ideal world,
I
where-
would be married with children in an ideal world.
Do you still love your country?
I love to be an American.
Stella?
Love being an American.
So why are you saying that this system perpetuates hating America?
I'll let you cook. I'll let you cook.
This is the first presidential election for which most of Gen Z is of voting age, and both candidates are trying to woo them.
We have to have the American dream for our young people.
I'm going to give a particular shout out to the Gen Z.
In this episode of Swing State Debates, I'm in Michigan to speak with Gen Z voters about the political reality they've inherited.
Can you all go around and tell me your name and what you do, including if you're active in any political capacity, and who you're planning on voting for if you've decided yet? Let's start with you.
My name is Katie. I am 23. I work as a respiratory therapist, so not really political. I represent the Libertarian Party, and I'm going to vote for Trump.
I'm Stella. I am 19 and a sophomore in college. I am the communications director for the Michigan College Democrats, and I plan on voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
Sam Ditsazy. I currently work in politics in Lansing. I'm legislative director there. I managed students for Trump back in 2020, and as you can imagine, I'm voting for Donald Trump again in 2024.
My name is Amber Henson. I am a current undergrad at the University of Michigan. I am the state executive board vice president for the Michigan College Democrats, and I am voting for Kamala Harris.
So I'm Jackie Eubanks. I'm the state director of Catholics for Trump. So I think you all know who I'll be voting for, obviously.
I'm Alec Beaton. I am a Trump regional manager, coordinator. I'm also a volunteer for the GOP. I'm a district youth chair for the district GOP, also a county GOP youth chair.
I'm Alec Hughes. I'm a senior now at the University of Michigan, co-president of our College Democrats chapter at UMich. So I'll be voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
So I want to start with, where do you get your news? Like, what's your favorite podcast or news program or whatever? And why don't we start over here and just go around?
Dave Smith and Joe Rogan.
I get mine from the Washington Post and the New York Times mostly.
Guilty, Twitter. I'm still calling it Twitter.
Yeah. NPR and CNN.
My favorite X account, which is AF Post.
Yeah, AF Post, Twitter, Rumble, Telegram.
I'm also guilty with Twitter. I also listen to NPR and the New York Times podcast on occasion.
Finish this sentence, and I'm just going to popcorn this here. Democrats stand for?
Reproductive freedom.
Minorities.
Subversion.
Progress.
Big government.
Democracy.
Hive mind.
Subversion, that stuck out for me. Say more.
I mean, you look at the culture today, our culture as is already degenerative. The entire mindset of our youth, of our country has totally changed for the worse. Well, obviously, it's not the conservatives who want to preserve the culture and maintain traditions that are causing this, but rather it is radicals, it is liberals, it is people that want to change things, and they have progress that are making these changes, which is worsening the country. I think that we should be trying to move forward and make progress, yes, but through actual changes that benefit the youth, that benefit and strengthen the country. We need strong values, strong leaders, strong families, and this is not going to be done with policies that are going to be more,
Like transing the youth or drag queen story hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, like how does that make the country
How's that going to win
better?
us, in the competitive war against Russia or China? They're teaching their...
How does that fix the
They're
economy?
going to teach their kids how to fight, how to win. They have a winning mindset. They don't care about these other issues because they're busy on conquering the world. And I'm not saying we should go and engage in wars.
No, but like the Chinese youth are literally building guns at their desks.
Yeah.
And we're like asking children if they want to get transgender surgery.
I will say I don't know that Drag Queen Story Hour is part of Kamala Harris's platform, but let's do Republicans. What do Republicans stand for? Republicans stand for
The past.
I was going to say the past, too.
MAGA.
We stand for the American dream.
Republicans stand for?
Strength.
Republicans stand for?
Regression.
Republicans stand for?
Conservatism.
I was going to say strength, but I'm also not a part of either party. I stand for individual freedoms. And that's kind of the overall priority of the Libertarian Party. Just kind of like a leave me alone. Stop taxing everything. Let me have my full wage. Let's pull out of these countries. No more war. Let me have my guns. And just give me freedom of speech. And let's all just kind of exist and not be fighting all the time.
Okay, so to be quite honest with you, in order for society to function well, you do have to have some infringements on individual freedoms. Some. That doesn't mean entirely. That certainly doesn't mean I need to take all of your, I need to take a part of your paycheck for income tax. There was a point in time when we didn't need to do that, but we still legislated morality for the sake of preserving social cohesion. And so, for example, it actually during the founding era was illegal to have a child out of wedlock. Now, we would be aghast in our modern day that would ever be illegal. How could you not have a child out of wedlock? That's your right. But the reality was they knew that the breakdown of the family would cause society to unravel, and it would be a great fiscal cost to the American taxpayer, because then you have to have government support, right? A lot of times what would happen is women would go into what were poorhouses because their husband didn't, or the baby's father didn't marry them. And so who was going to support them? It either had to be the family, the church, or the government. And so it was made illegal to prevent it from being a burden on everyday Americans paying their taxes so that they didn't have to take care of this. And also it was for the sake of preserving the individual family unit because they knew that that was the building block of a healthy society. And so now we see today in the Black community, for example, 70% of children are born outside of wedlock, and Black Americans are disproportionately poorer and more likely to go to jail. And so you can link those things together: father absence, crime, poverty, unwed pregnancy, and the cycle continues.
That's just extremely simplistic. I mean, to pull up just as an example, like the African American community, which has undergone centuries of structural racism, of a legal system fully being built up against them at every corner, to say that no, it's not that, it's instead that children are being born out of wedlock seems like an extremely simplistic and, in my view at least, extremely just incorrect argument to make. That because there's a degradation of morality, that's why the community is in the state it's in today, rather than what has actually tangibly been taken on against them for the entire history of the country.
You don't think the 1965 Civil Rights Act fixed anything?
It did fix some things, but it definitely hasn't gone the whole way.
How would we bring back that morality of not having children out of wedlock and such, and how would we get to that point as Americans?
We stop incentivizing single motherhood. When we stop incentivizing that and actually start kind of growing a community around these families, and that's one thing I think Republicans are kind of changing their tune on. I mean, we've seen it. We are the pro-life party, and I think we're starting to kind of change our ways a little bit when it comes to more support for young families and single mothers. But we just cannot keep having the government be the answer to absent fathers. That's just never going to work.
I just want to make sure that this isn't kind of justifying, issues of domestic violence in the household, because obviously, proportionally, women are more likely to be affected by domestic violence.
I'm not one of those people that say you should stay in your marriage no matter what.
Yes.
If you're facing abuse, get out. But
good. Yes.
I don't think that's happening in the majority of the cases. I think we've made it too easy for fathers to walk away from their children because they know whether I'm there or not, Uncle Sam's going to be there to take care of me or take care of my children. And we just got to stop doing that. We need to give women the tools that they have beforehand so that they have successful pregnancies, that they are not, having this unexpectedly, and that when things like this do happen, they're prepared for it and they have resources at their disposal.
Would you say that pro-choice is a tool to stop single motherhood?
No, I think what we need to get back to is fostering a culture that supports life. And as we've seen with the abortion issue, that has went back to the states now. Here in Michigan specifically, voters made their voices heard, and it's enshrined into our Constitution now. And I think that the best path forward is to be looking at the reasons why are women having abortions like they are. And I think it goes back to the economic problems. We have made it so unaffordable in this country to have a family, everything between the inflation, being able to buy a home, that having a kid has went from being a beautiful moment in a lot of women's lives to being one of the most scary. And I think that if we continue to just put Band-Aids on the problem and say, oh, apply for bare minimum government benefits to help you through, I don't think that's going to be helping anyone.
Have you guys, to the Democrats on this panel, have you heard these arguments before?
Yeah, I heard it just in passing, maybe not so much in college, just because I don't know if anyone our age is necessarily thinking about starting a family or anything.
That's crazy that you never heard that before, like except in passing. That's insane. That's crazy.
Why is that crazy?
Because I feel like if you just do a little bit of research, independent thinking, and dig into issues, you'll start to put two and two together. It's not that difficult. You just have to either have somebody give a balanced viewpoint, an alternative viewpoint to the same things you've been told your whole life. I mean, let's be realistic here. The public education system is overwhelmingly left-wing. Do you agree or disagree?
I think it's pretty obvious that it's left-leaning. I mean, when I was in school, they were saying like, all right, let's skip Christian history, go straight to the Arab empires. And then the next year, it's just like all about how racist America is.
Or the fact that in my AP US history textbook, I'll never forget this because I read the whole damn thing cover to cover, they went into an entire section on the greatness of Margaret Sanger, who founded Planned Parenthood. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm a faithful Catholic. I'm completely against Planned Parenthood and everything it stands for. Why does my AP US history textbook have an entire section dedicated to this woman who's caused the death of millions and millions of unborn babies?
I mean, feminism is an indisputable part of US history. Like, it's a very common theme.
I think education should be like patriotic. We should love this country. And like, I'll agree, the system sucks. As a conservative, as like someone who's like a nationalist, like I hate how our country is now, but we should glorify the good things that we did, and that never really happened. And this country, you can disagree, was founded on Christian values. What was the Constitution founded on, or based on? The Magna Carta. What was the Magna Carta based on? The Bible. And all of the founding fathers, except for like one or two of them, were Christian. So why aren't we, incorporating some elements of Christianity, or at least the fact that the people that were in Europe came here because of religious freedoms?
Raise your hands here if you think that public education, pre-K through 12, is left-wing.
You don't realize it.
I don't think every day
Who thinks it's right-wing?
See? We won. You don't think it's right
Who thinks it has no ideology whatsoever?
I think that bias is a natural part of the education system. I think that obviously there's a lot of things to talk about in education. But when I think about my education system and my experience, it was inclusive of things that hadn't been previously mentioned in history before.
Like what?
Like the Red Power movement in America during it was the Indigenous Peoples movement. People never learned about that.
I didn't.
Exactly.
What was that?
It's the movement of Indigenous people trying to get out of reservations and like the schools that were mandated for them.
But have you heard about the Comanches?
Yes, yeah.
So you know that they would actually rape and kill the pioneers who lived out in Texas and Oklahoma?
I had a whole system or whole structure talking about indigenous people history. Like I didn't.
So you know about.
It was more inclusive.
You know about the Aztecs and the human sacrifices and blood sacrifices that they did when the Spanish
I've learned
arrived
about that too. Yes.
They didn't tell us that they said that the Spanish came there and they just killed and raped and conquered. They mentioned nothing about conversion. It's why are the Mexicans so Catholic and so Christian? If the Spanish were so evil and so bad, why would they convert?
Do you want things like that implemented in our textbooks?
I want like a balance. I mean, I want to know about the evils that people have done. I mean, we all sin. Every nation, every country, we all have a bad history. You can look at any nation. So obviously, I mean, that's kind of inevitable, but we should subscribe that to values. Like obviously, I don't know, it should be used to further our patriotism, not hate our own system and hate our country. This is how it was 100 years ago, and it's still like this today. That's not gonna make you more patriotic and love your country. They say these bad things are still happening, it's still present, and this country sucks, the system sucks, it's still corrupt, there's still this, there's still that. I mean, no wonder the suicide rates are so high. No wonder people are so depressed. There's nothing to live for, there's nothing to fight for. And rightfully so. All our foreign wars are for big corporations and elites who do not give a damn about America. So obviously, I agree with the left on those issues. And obviously, as young Gen Z, I want to fix that. We should only have wars that are defensive and whatnot, but we need to work together to create that. In an ideal world, we're not going to keep saying our country sucks, our system sucks. You know, we have to have an idealistic way of improving that.
But aren't you still patriotic?
I mean,
After enduring all of that, all of like the negative history, aren't you still patriotic? Do you still love your country?
I love my country, but how it is now.
Alec, do you still love your country?
I love to be an American.
Stella?
Love being an American.
So why are you saying that the system perpetuates like hating America?
I think you hate the history of America. Do you hate America's history?
I do not, no.
Okay. So that's a good thing to not hate your country's history, so that's good.
I think that there are a lot of inequalities in our history. In terms of how we teach it, I think that being more honest and being more transparent about what has happened in our history, I'm proud about the fact that we're getting to a point of showing the bad stuff that America has done. We are able to see the whole perspective. We are able to see this is what happened truthfully. Like, we're not going to continue to hide that. I think that that is ingrained in our country's beliefs, to be transparent, to be open about the bad things that we have had in the past.
And I don't think it's wrong to hate the bad parts of history, of which there are many objective good parts, there are many objective bad parts about American history, and I don't think it's wrong to hate the bad parts.
The reason why I ask is because when I did work for Turning Point USA and I was on college campuses 5 days a week for 2 straight years, all I heard from crazy left, I know this is the stereotype, but I'm painting a picture for you, is these crazy people coming up screaming at you saying, F America, F you neo-Nazi. And that's what I had to endure for 2 straight years on a nearly daily basis. So you can't tell me that there aren't people who hate this country because I experienced it every day.
Well, look, every time a conservative speaker goes to speak at a college campus, it gets shut down because they act violent.
There were violent protests that tried to shut down our Kent State Kyle Rittenhouse event.
Okay, wait, excuse me if I'm wrong, but didn't Kyle Rittenhouse shoot a bunch of people?
And he was found
he was
guilty.
acquitted for self-defense.
Even if you don't agree with the court's decision, does that mean that
so
people still have a right to go into...
So why are you guys making him a political figure?
He was invited, hold on. He was invited by my Turning Point chapter to speak at their campus. That was my students' decision. So regardless of if I agree or disagree with anything about him, that was my students' decision.
So wouldn't you think it's right to protest a controversial person?
There's a difference between protesting and shutting down
but the fact that they tried to shut down the event by threatening to throw bricks at us, they were literally making bomb threats. We had to have bomb dogs sweep the building. It was insane in America to have to deal with that level of hatred, that they want to throw bricks at you because they don't agree with you.
So data show that overall, women under 30 are becoming more liberal than their male counterparts. And this applies, at least according to Gallup, for both college and non-college educated women. But we aren't seeing the same trend for men. I wonder why you guys think that is.
I think it's because Democrats have masculinity is now not okay. It's not okay to be a man. They've made it to where, and especially if you are just your typical male, you are automatically assumed to be sexist or racist by the Democrats. Just being your typical white male, Democrat Party usually looks at me and says, oh, he does not understand what's going on with our culture. And, it's just sad.
Yeah, we're seeing a counterculture build up. When I was in high school, it was like the punk rock was getting your MAGA hat. You couldn't wear it, so you had to tie it to your backpack and walk around. And that's what we did. It was like we were revolutionaries, basically.
I think one of the main reasons this trend started to happen, especially in the United States, is with Donald Trump running for president. He's had a lot of sexist, rhetoric. He said, you could do anything, grab a woman by the pussy. Who cares? Stuff like that. And I think that deterred women from the Republican Party in general. And I'm not saying that the party itself has an issue with misogyny, but there are certain figureheads that have said not the best things about women, and that has kind of steered them away.
Gen Z has only had really one Republican candidate to vote for in their entire life, and that's been Donald Trump.
It's true.
So I think that maybe in the future there's going to be a shift, but it's one person who's gone forward in the ticket.
Would you have been more likely to vote for a Republican if the candidate was Nikki Haley?
No.
Yeah, see, neither would I.
I grew up, I think the town is like 89% conservative, so it's a very right-wing area. And even then, the teachers we're liberal. I mean, there's a lot of liberal students, obviously, as statistics show, mainly from the women, but men are tired of this. They want to see a strong nation. They want to grow up and they want to have families and they want to live in normalcy. And they're seeing this other revolution take place that they're totally against because it's opposed to everything that we stand for. If this other revolution from the left takes over, everything that we want, it's not going to be mainstream. We're going to get the total opposite, and what we see is normal is going to be replaced by what they see as normal.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry, but the question was about why women have become more liberal. You guys both immediately started talking about men. I think that is an example in itself about why more women are leaning more liberal.
To be fair, he asked why that's not the case with men.
Yeah, and I can't really speak for women, but I would assume, women are different, the way they think, the way they feel. I mean, obviously, how do I put this? How do I be optical about this? It's like, in an ideal world where everything is perfect, do you think that women strive to work? Out of curiosity.
Strive to work.
They have an ambition to work. They literally as a man, I have a drive to want to fight.
Absolutely,
I want
do.
to work.
Absolutely, I want to work until I die.
Okay, but
there's ambition. Women are ambitious and strong and fearless, and it's not about I feel like that in itself is a misogynist connotation, that you're thinking that women don't have that drive or that ambition.
Statistically, though.
Jackie, you're an ambitious woman. You're a business owner.
Yeah, you
You own a nonprofit. You're the CEO.
Well, she's had to.
But I've had to. This is actually for survival.
Driven?
This is actually for survival.
She was
so I didn't want to do this.
So.
I didn't want to do this.
In an ideal world,
I would be married with children in an ideal world. And I'd be very happy because I wouldn't be slaving away for a corporation or an organization. I
want to be married and have children. That doesn't mean that I don't have drive or ambition in my career, in my professional life.
When you grow up, do you want a family?
Oh, I've been wanting a family since I was 14.
Perfect. And you want to work as well, right?
No. I would love to be a stay-at-home mom. I would love to be a homemaker and a wife. I would love to be able to live on a homestead and go milk my cow and take the eggs out of the chicken coop and have one baby in the belly and on my hip and another toddler coming behind me. That's my dream, but I can't fucking do that because the way the economy is set up is I'm forced to work. I'm forced to get an education, a higher education, a college degree in order to make enough money that I can be financially independent and afford my own home or my own rent or my own gas or my own groceries, my own insurance, and it's extremely difficult to do that. And it's very isolating as a woman when you have to do all of that all on your own and you can't find somebody that you can outsource some of those chores and financial responsibilities like you would with a spouse. So no, being a single working woman absolutely sucks. It's the worst thing ever. I hate it. I would go back to the 1950s in a second just so I wouldn't have to deal with this shit.
You're talking about a traditional nuclear family where the woman doesn't work in a married household with kids.
And statistically, that was the case.
You're a single woman who isn't married with kids yet.
So I'm for because of the way it is. Most women were married by the age of 21 up until the 1970s.
I think it's a woman's choice. Before that, it was societally encouraged to marry young.
Yeah, and it was better for women mental health-wise, long-term, to be able to go into that long-term committed relationship and have the established family instead of being forced to slave away for a corporation that doesn't like you, doesn't care about you, makes you sit under fluorescent lights for 8, 9, 10 hours a day. You get a lunch break, you get health insurance, but do you have somebody who loves you staring at you every day like your child? No, it's horrible. I would much rather be with my own children and my own husband and do all of my work for them and make sure that they're taken care of because it's a loving relationship.
Katie, what do you think about this? You have kids, yeah?
I have a kid.
Are you a trad wife, would you say?
Okay, here we go. I am...
Nose leaking.
I am severely ambitious. Always have been. I am just that type of person.
You want 6 kids?
No. That's a little crazy. No. I've always been extremely ambitious. I'm trying to be top of my class, everything. I work full time now. I work night shift. I'm exhausted. My husband works full time. I'm trying to take care of my kid. I'm trying to keep house. I'm trying to keep all my animals alive. I'm exhausted. We live kind of paycheck to paycheck. We got a little in the savings, but that's where it is. We make really good money that, 10, 15 years ago would have landed us in a very comfortable position. But now we're working our butts off. My husband works 100 plus hours a week. I work 3 night shifts in a row. I wish I could work part-time. I wish I could just stay home with my baby And I wish I could. I'm very ambitious, and I just want to have the option.
In
I
my
guess
point,
my question-
I'll let you cook. And my point is simply that I think on average, women seek that comfort. They seek that security. They want that good man who can take care of most of the hard parts. And women that don't, I think it's because of our society, it's broken. You go through a bad experience or whatever, and you think that you have to do it all on your own. And I think like that, whatever. But I think in an ideal world, women would love that comfort. They'd be like Barbie, and they'd just be doing their thing, having their kids and whatever they enjoy.
In America today, is life easier for men or for women?
I don't think there's a hierarchy anymore in this day and age.
I agree. I believe it's still based on how hard you work. If you have two candidates, one male, one female, and one works harder, that one that works harder is going to be more successful, 10 out of 10.
Yes, we do have equal opportunity under law. Societally speaking, it might be a little harder to answer that question, only because women do face oftentimes sexism, whether that be in the workplace or in general. There is kind of some dissonance, societally speaking.
I think women have it easier, to be honest. I really do. More women go to college than men. It is actually easier for women to get employed in white-collar jobs than men. I think that there is a lot of court discrimination against men, especially in divorce court. A woman is much more likely to get custody than her now ex-husband. So I think that actually the framework of the law has tipped in the favor of women.
I mean, for the most part, there's equal opportunity, but obviously when it comes to DEI policy, it's like women are kind of seen as, I don't know if I'd say a minority, but they're seen as disadvantaged because of our past history. So they're given more leverage in the 21st century because of that. So you'll see women, typically, I don't want to say favored, but more often than not, given that leverage wherever they are.
Do either the other Democrats here think there's any truth to that side of things, or do you lean more towards Stella's point of view?
I think wage gap and equal pay is still something that we're not equal on. And I think that brings a certain disadvantage to women. I also think that, yes, there are more opportunities available now, but it's still hard to reach that barrier. It's still hard to cross it. So in the workplace, I think women are still discriminated against. I think that there's more sexism and misogyny. And I do think that women have a more difficult time than men, especially in the workplace.
My only counter I want to say to that is men still on average are more likely to be the ones to die in the workplace.
I was going to bring that up too.
When you look at the numbers at the end of the day, men are more likely to die at work. They're more likely to kill themselves. They're more likely to have depression. And I think based on the numbers, you can't say that men have it easier.
How do you think Democrats view women in a way that's different from the way Republicans view women?
I feel like right now Democrats look at being a woman as a costume.
Is this fair? We've had allusions to transgender stuff happening throughout.
You look at the legislation here in Michigan. They're changing the phrase. They've removed mother from all of our legislation and replaced it with birthing person.
What do you guys think of that, Democrats?
I don't think much of it.
To me, it's really not that big of a deal. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it.
I think that inclusion is important. When you think about the overarching rules or laws that we've crafted, it used to be all he, and then it became he or she, and then it became they, and then I just think that it's more inclusive of those people. I think that all Americans deserve to be represented somehow in our government. And the fact that we're progressing to more inclusive language, I have no problem with it because it doesn't change anything in the laws or the legislature we already have. I think that it's a move to be more inclusive so that more Americans feel like they are being heard. It's not excluding anyone.
But they're literally erasing the word woman
Hey,
from our
Mom,
laws.
how do you feel about it?
I go back and forth with it because on one side, I do completely understand the inclusivity. I do. I don't want to make people angry, but also as a mother, I am not a huge fan of it. Just because I feel like motherhood, to me, is a very big thing of womanhood. Mm-hmm. There are absolutely a whole bunch of other things that make a strong woman. Mm-hmm. But I feel like erasing the word mother just kind of erases a part of that.
Biological women who, quote, identify as men who give birth. Again, that's such a small sector of the population that to change the language to cater to them is insane.
I think the intention was to cater towards everyone, not just one specific person.
Yeah.
Does everyone here think that the intention is coming from a positive, good place, or no?
I would think so.
I think it's coming from an inclusive place.
Yeah, there's impact versus intent.
And you don't think it? You think
No,
it's just political?
stupid.
Really?
For 0.1% of the vote, it's like, really? Like, what else are we gonna change? You know, it's a slippery slope. You wanna satisfy everyone, make everyone happy because of how they identify, how they feel. At what extent do you stop? At what extent is it too far or too radical?
James Carville recently said the Democratic Party has too many preachy females. Why do you think he said that? Do you guys agree? And any examples of what he was talking about come to mind for anyone? Let's start with the Democrats on this. Alec.
Honestly, I hadn't heard that quote before. I don't think it's a very warranted observation.
I don't necessarily understand what we're preaching. I mean, obviously, as Democrats, we have our own views as a party, as a whole, and I don't think the women in that group steer away from the Democratic norm.
You can say the same thing about the Republican Party with Marjorie Taylor Greene or any other strong woman in power. I think that is more of a feminism issue or a misogyny issue than it is a Democratic Party issue. I just think that that's a way to target women in the Democratic Party.
Let's take out the female part of it. Does the Democratic Party have a preachiness problem?
A lot of people do have observations about the Democratic Party that it's do as I say, not as I do mentality, and so I think that's what one might mean about preachy. As to whether that's true, I don't think it's true at all. I don't think the Democratic Party is preachy.
What do the rest of you think?
Democrats are not performing well with men right now. And I think, them putting out a female candidate and their whole message is being vote for her because she's a woman and she understands women's issues. What does that say to the men? That's not doing anything to pull men in. So you guys a lot of you wrote off James Carville, but I can't believe I'm defending him as a Republican. If you guys want to win, you should probably listen to him.
I've been preached at by family members because I fall very in between everything. And it's basically, if I say one thing that I believe in, it's, oh, you're a bad person, you're awful, how can you even think things like this? I'm like, no compromise, and very much, if you don't believe how I believe, you are an awful, horrible person. They'll start calling you names, racist, transphobic, everything else if you have a little different of an ideal.
I think that's a matter of perspective. I've had the same experience when I talk to a Republican. My dad and brother are both Republicans, and whenever we try to have a debate on policy, I mean, it's the same type of argument. I think that's natural in debate.
I want to take an observation from just our conversation so far, how that's going. Multiple times we've heard people on the conservative side describe the correct system of morality, the family-centered focus, the idea of the nuclear family, as the correct one. I believe you called America or the education system as founded based on a Christian system of government, as Christian ideals, and those ideas of patriotism, of nationalism, of Christianity that should be espoused through our public education system. In the sense of what we've been talking about so far, how is that not preachy? Because I think I've heard more preachiness from the Republican side just in this room.
Yeah, what do you say to that?
What do I say to that?
Yeah.
Obviously, one of the Christian values is wait until you're married to have sex. So I feel, there's a lot of things that I myself, obviously I'm not just preaching it, I actually believe in that. I'm actually gonna work hard. But in terms of other Republicans, I mean, yeah, there are a lot of grifters in the GOP, and the youth need to fix that. The young Republicans need to rise up and replace these people who I think are preachy in the same way that the Democrats have this issue. We need real leaders to show the GOP, how to be a true Christian, how to be conservative, and lead by example. And I think we're doing that. We're seeing young people rise up, run for positions, take power, and be that example.
Well, our next subject is, what do you kids do for fun? So, apparently, your generation is having less sex, partying less, doing drugs less. So, why do you guys think that this generation is another way I've seen it written about is engaging in fewer risk-taking behaviors?
I don't think that we're engaging in fewer risk-taking behaviors. I think we're more aware of our digital footprint. And I think that because we grew up in social media, we know to conceal or to not share those aspects on the internet.
But this data isn't coming from like scrolling through people's Instagram photos and counting the number of kids with cups. It's like self-reported data on like kids who are saying like they just compare and they find this generation is drinking less and having less sex.
I'll take a shot. I feel like part of it too, I mean, we are that generation that grew up watching Teen Mom on TV.
Yeah. True.
And you know, I'm 26, but the amount of friends that I know that have lost due to fentanyl over the past few decades, I mean, it's not safe to do drugs anymore. There used to be a time where people could do drugs and have fun and not really worry so much, but now it's like that time's gone. You can't dabble around. You make one mistake, you make one bad decision, and your life is gone now.
Speaking as a woman, I wouldn't be caught dead at a bar alone drinking. I'm scared.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy to me because I've definitely gone clubbing completely by myself and have had no issues. I think that maybe there's a perception that it is really dangerous. But to go to your point about, Gen Z having less sex than the boomers, for example, or Gen X, I would think probably it's because men and women are not getting together because of political divides, because of interest divides, right? I think that young women and young men just don't relate to each other anymore in the same way that maybe we had cohesion between the sexes, maybe prior to social media, maybe prior to the liberal hegemony that has really divided the beliefs of men and women. We just don't get one another.
Raise your hand if you are on a dating app or met your current partner / boyfriend, girlfriend on a dating app. Raise your hand. Wow, only 2 of you. How'd you meet your husband? Work, okay. And you didn't raise your hand either. Why aren't you on any apps?
It's just not something that I really am trying to prioritize right now. Education comes first for me right now.
Okay. How'd you meet your boyfriend?
I met him on Tinder, but if any older generation asks, I say we met at a party, which I think is weird.
You think they can't handle hearing that you met on Tinder?
Yeah, honestly, yeah. At U of M specifically, there's a huge online dating culture. And so it's almost like the norm to be on a dating app.
Okay.
Like I don't know if I have any friends who aren't on a dating app, but I think that if I say that to like an older generation, there's automatically judgment.
Would you date someone who's voting for Trump, Alex?
I wouldn't have a problem with it. Like, there's like, everyone has like difference in values, but like, it's really like the value, in a relationship, the value you find in the other person as well. Like my parents are like of opposing political views. They are divorced, but politics did not have a role in it. I promise politics did not have like a role in it at all.
What about the rest of you? Would anyone here not date someone from the opposite tribe? Oh.
I mean, like in high school, when it didn't matter, like I would date guys who would identify as left wing or Democrat, but like that was very short lived and you're in high school. But let's say post high school, I don't think I have ever dated anybody who identified as left wing ever.
Sam, you ever been stirred by a Democrat?
No, I can't. For me, it's just more of the point of dating is marriage ultimately, and I feel like the biggest thing is how are we going to raise our kids, and if we can't agree on that issue, that I don't see a point there.
Wise man.
What? And you are nodding. So the point of dating for you is marriage as well.
Yes, 100%. Do I see myself dating a conservative? No. Do I see myself maybe dating a moderate Republican? Possibly. Obviously, I'm speaking hypothetically. The men I've talked to mainly lean Democrat, but that's mainly because of the circles I surround myself in. I haven't been able to kind of, break that, which is fine. So,
have you guys, the Democrats because you're all members of the Michigan Democratic Club. That's what it's called, yeah?
Yes.
How many Republican friends do you have, would you say?
I don't know any Republicans personally at the University of Michigan. I have a lot of like close friends who are Republicans back home, but it's just kind of hard to find them on campus.
I gotta ask the conservatives this question as well. Like, do you have friends who are Democrats?
Oh yeah, tons.
Do you have friends who are Democrats?
When I was in college, yeah, I did. The girls in my sorority. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Do you have friends who are?
I have friends of every.
Yeah, well, you're our wild card participant. I want to talk a little bit about the political culture. Have you ever found yourself holding a political opinion because you feel a pressure to conform to the politics around you? You're nodding.
All the time.
Oh.
All the time. I can't, unless I find...
Like where, like in what kind of places? Like when?
At work, at school, just out in public with family, everything. Like just pretty much everywhere I go.
What do you think is like your most socially toxic political opinion? And why don't you say it for the internet right now?
Trans issues.
Trans stuff. Mm-hmm.
I don't bring up politics in most situations. I just kind of nod, and I don't agree, but I'm not going to say anything.
You were nodding. So can you think of a time when you...
I stand with the great majority of what the Democratic Party aligns with. I don't know if I should say this on television, but I have kind of had mixed feelings about the death penalty. I believe that if you evidently go into a school and shoot it up and kill thousands of innocent children, you kind of, deserve that, deserve to not be alive anymore. So that's kind of something I've been debating with in my head, and I've talked to a lot of my friends about it, and some of them have very good points, Democrats, Republicans.
Well, I mean, I feel like every conservative who's been in a college classroom has felt that. I mean, I challenge you Democrats here, wear a MAGA hat on your campus and see what response you get from your classmates. It will be some of the nastiest, most vile things you've ever experienced. And especially when it comes to grading, I've seen it with my own work. You tell the professor what they want to hear, you get an A. You argue conservative points, you're getting a C. It's across the board.
For me, I disagree with a lot of Biden's stances, or I don't like Biden. And I think that is hard to tell people in politics, especially older people. Ever since the first debate, there was a lot of pressure for people to be more vocal about it. But even then, we try to organize an initiative for people to understand that a lot of young people didn't like Biden.
Was that unspeakable in any of your social circles?
I think it was before the presidential debate.
Have you ever kept an opinion to yourself?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When I'm dealing with girls that are my age who I'm trying to maintain friendly relationships with, absolutely, I shut the F up about what I think, because it's the only way I'm going to be able to get along with them. And it's for example, this was 2 nights ago, got invited to the bar by my guy friends, because all my friends are men at this point, except my female friends from college who are married. So I go to the bar and I just start talking to, random girls love to talk to me, and that's cute. I like it, I do. And they're like, let me share my rape and my abortion story. And I'm like, I'm gonna need to be so compassionate and empathetic in this moment because this person is pouring their heart out to me, but I hate that they killed their child. But I understand where they're coming from, that they were in a place of pain and this is a very traumatizing experience. I'm gonna have to shut up so that I can at least have a human interaction that's not bludgeoning them with talking points, It's the only way to relate, especially to girls. With men love debate. I get guys all the time because I'll go after them and I'll be like, that's a stupid opinion, blah, 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 and they love it. But with girls, if you want to relate to them, you really have to reel it in, tone it down, and just be very human and personal.
Big thing, which I'm honestly surprised has not come up yet today, is the discourse around the conflict in Israel-Palestine, in Gaza. There's, particularly at the University of Michigan, I know this is a big thing at a lot of other schools, but there's large groups of students, communities of students who have direct ties that are Palestinian or that are Israeli. And so it's led to a lot of incidents on campus. There's been protests, there's been incidents where the police have been called in, students have gotten arrested. So it's led to a pretty charged, tense feeling on campus. The main kind of pro-Palestine coalition on campus has been very vocal. They've been leading protests and everything, and they've taken over is kind of a strong word, but they've gotten a majority of seats in the central student government on campus. And so it's kind of led to an air of if you aren't very vocally with them, it's kind of better to just not talk about it.
Have the Democrats, the college Democrats, taken a position on that?
We have, yeah. Last semester around the early spring, I believe, we put out a statement calling for like a ceasefire. Calling for like a ceasefire in the conflict. But there are a lot of students in kind of the pro-Palestine side and kind of the pro-Israeli side as well that have kind of taken a like, if you're not like fully with us, you're against us.
To add to that too, there's like the Democratic Party mainly supports Israel, and then younger students at the University of Michigan who are more politically involved mainly support Palestine. And so I've definitely noticed that there's a mentality that like you can't be in the middle. It's hard because Democrats and Republicans, at the end of the day, we can compromise. I think that that's something that America as a value can hold up, and can hold up compromise as like one of the core values of our nation. And I feel like it's hard because the sphere we're getting into now, it's harder to get to that point of compromise.
I just like to point out, we had a ceasefire up until October 7th, when thousands of Hamas terrorists ran into that country, raped women by the thousands, killed Holocaust survivors, and then called home to tell their family how many Jews they killed. This is something that America, we've seen it here in our own country. On the morning of September 11th, my uncle, he was a Cleveland firefighter. He left his father's funeral that morning. And by that evening, he was in New York City with his unit. And he spent 2 weeks there, searching through the rubble, searching for his fellow Americans that had been basically put into a blender of concrete. And within 6 years, him and everyone that he went with were dead because of the things that they were exposed to at Ground Zero. So when I see what happened in Israel and what Hamas did to them, they feel the same about us. Everyone that is defending Palestine, especially you young women, if you went over to Hamas right now in Palestine, you would be raped, you would be murdered. Full stop. And we gotta stop supporting groups that are anti-American.
I don't have a position, but there's people that are pro-Israel that are like, okay, well, you know, why don't you have, they're very passionate about it. And like, just because of that, there's been hit pieces, like people coming after me just because I don't have a good stance on it, or because I support Candace Owens. And I can just see, like, you're very passionate. I think that's the most passionate you've been this whole, was over Israel. And it's like, why is that? I just don't care about, I'm America first. And I just want to put America first. We shouldn't be giving foreign aid to any country. That's it. And it's like, people are like, well, what about Israel? They need it. They're the only Western country that's against Islam that exists. We need to protect them. It's like, or some people will say it's in the Bible, and the Bible says, thou shalt give Israel money. It's like, what? What are you talking about, dude? Like, are you insane? Why are people so gung-ho about this? And now I'm getting gung-ho because it's like, why are you gung-ho about this particular issue out of everything? A lot of my Republican friends feel the exact same way. Why are we, so gung-ho about this?
Sam, why do you think that Republicans are so gung-ho on Israel?
Well, I think it's really for our own security. They are our biggest strategic partner when it comes to the U.S. military. Us being able to operate out of Israel, work with their intelligence community. Thanks to Israeli intelligence, the United States has, there's been a lot of attacks prevented on us through Israeli intelligence. And, they have stood with us. And I think it's important that we stand with them. And I understand where you're coming from, absolutely. I hate seeing money go to other countries.
Yeah.
But
more
when
than
it comes,
any other country in the world.
But when it comes to Israel, it's part of our strategic defense. We need to be able to launch attacks out of that country in case something goes on with Iran, in case something goes on in some other part of the Middle East. It is absolutely vital for our military to be able to respond from there.
If Iran attacks Israel, should America put troops on the ground against Iran?
That one's a hard one.
See, that's where I would say, as the founder of Young Americans for Peace, I would say no Americans should die in a conflict between two foreign countries.
We are in an interconnected world. I mean, there's Iran is an evil the regime anyway is an imperialist, expansionist regime
But why does America have to be everyone's superhero? Why is it always America's responsibility?
Well, it's ultimately, the argument is that it's ultimately for America's good.
It's for, I'd say it's for most people's good at this point. That's very debatable, very arguable, I know, but if America were to step down as the head of the world stage, whatever you want to call it, someone else is going to fill it, there's going to be a vacuum just naturally left. And if it's not the US, it would very likely be China. And I think it's generally agreeable that China's interests aren't necessarily always in our own.
Finish this sentence. When I think about the future of America, I feel
optimistic.
Hopeful.
Concerned.
I would say hopeful as well.
Scared.
Yeah, I mean, we grew up through like the recession, the shitty job market that followed, and then just to make things worse, like COVID a few years later and everything. And now we're just kind of like sitting here. I think we're like all, mostly grown up, and we're like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like last decade or so has kind of sucked.
It is hard for younger people to buy a house. And it is hard for us to get into the job market or to like finish education without being in substantial debt. And I think that a lot of us are very upset about that, because there's a really big trend to go to college, to incur this debt, and then spend the rest of your life paying it off. And that is a really hard burden, especially for someone like me who has to pay for their entire college by themselves.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
And I honestly think college is a racket. I really genuinely think that most majors offered in these big colleges, most of them you're not going to get a job in your field. And that's just kind of a fact. You're going to end up working a very menial job, $15 an hour starting off the gate, when you have all of this debt because everyone told you you need to go to college. You can go be an electrician. You can go be an underwater welder and make a ton of money. But when we were growing up and trying to decide this, it was always looked down upon.
The traditional norm in my community was you go to a university and get a 4-year degree. And I love going to college, but for some people that isn't necessarily what they want to do or where they see themselves. And I think with kind of the college degree thing, I think what's become more important now is what you do outside of school. A college degree will not get you anywhere. Just saying that, I have a degree in this, you're not going to be offered a job. It's, your internship, your clubs, your leadership roles. I think those are definitely more important now, especially in the job market, than going to college.
I'm hearing such broad agreement across this ideological spectrum. So what do you guys think should be done about, what would help to make it easier for you guys to build wealth?
Stop taxing us to death. We pay income taxes, we pay property taxes, we pay sales taxes.
Oh, that's why this is a non-starter, I guess.
We pay taxes when we have to get a new car. We have to pay taxes to put gas in the car. We have to pay taxes on everything under the sun. And it's like, I know for a fact, I would be doing a lot better if I just got to keep the money that I earn. If the government didn't come in and take half my check, I wouldn't be having to pinch pennies as much. I wouldn't be struggling. I know there's a lot of people that are in that position because every time the government has an opportunity, they take more and more out of our pocket.
You're nodding along just like a Republican. What do you have to say to that?
No, you caught me. I was thinking less about taxation and more about reinvesting back into America. It is harder to get a job in this economy. And the Biden administration and Kamala Harris have made millions of jobs at this point. I think that we need to put more of an emphasis on that, like trading and making products and,
bringing jobs home.
Bringing jobs home. Yeah, I like that. And I think that that is a really big part about taxation, is the fact that we are getting taxed a lot on foreign imports. Like in the betterment of America, I see more jobs being brought back home.
Another big part of it is both political parties cater to the billionaire class that funds them. And the billionaire class is largely investment company managers, hedge fund managers. And what do? BlackRock and Vanguard buy up single family homes and turn them into rental units. So how am I supposed to be able to afford a single family home when I'm being taxed to death? You're buying them all up, you're turning them into rentals, or you're artificially jacking up the price. And then you have to compete with HB1 visa workers. That's part of the immigration crisis, where we need immigration reform because we need to be benefiting American-born Americans in the workforce. And we're just not right now.
You said earlier that all of the Republicans and our libertarian friend here all said they had friends who were Democrats. And all of the Democrats said that at least in your immediate milieu on campus, there are effectively no Republicans that you talk to. Do you guys think that's a problem?
There are more Democrats involved in higher education than Republicans. unfortunately, you guys selected some extremely sheltered college students because we all go to really liberal colleges. It's also the fact that, like, in colleges, we're seeing less Republican people.
I read something recently that because there are so relatively few Republicans on college campuses, that the Republicans who do go to these liberal colleges end up coming out much stronger in their ability to articulate and fight for their points of view, whereas opposed to liberal students who, because they don't really hear a lot of this stuff, like, are less good at doing that. Do you think that there's any truth to that? Do you think that's a problem? And how do you think that college, that liberals in college can address that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that's a problem. Like, they're like college campuses, you know, they're like, in the ideal world, they're open spaces. Anybody should be free to speak their mind because that's what universities are. They're a place for learning, they're a place for collaboration. So yes, just like blanket statement, I would say any situation where someone feels like they're not like safe or they're not gonna be heard or like they have a reason why they shouldn't be allowed to speak out on campus is very much a problem.
For those of you who went to college as conservatives, are there things that you think that the school could have done or that other students could have done?
Trying to hire Republican faculty.
Yeah, for sure.
To where you can get a professor that, you know, not maybe if half of your professors might be on a different side of the spectrum than you, that's fine. But when you're going to a class and class after class, every single professor is espousing the same views over and over again, it's hard not to, you know, feel alienated there.
More right-wingers should get PhDs. More right-wingers should go into academia. There is a heavy discouragement against people who identify as conservative from going into higher education. They're like, that's a waste of time. Why would you bother getting a PhD in gender studies, right? But hear me out, hear me out. I would actually love to get a PhD in political philosophy. I would love to be a political theory professor. Imagine the impact I could have just having conversations with my students who I know in every other class is hearing the same talking points over and over and over, and I'm like, listen, I'm going to give you a fair and balanced view. Here's this, here's that. You can make up your own minds, but this is just the literature, this is the philosophy, these are the facts. And so, unfortunately, so much of like the rhetoric on the right is college is a scam, go to the trades, which we do need tradespeople, we absolutely do. But if you are able to get a PhD because you have that drive, you just have that gift of intelligence or bookishness, you absolutely ought to. But then the universities have to be unbiased in hiring you based on qualifications and not based on ideology. That's the real way that we can restore balance on college campuses.
Best point from the other side.
Okay, I don't have one exact point. I think everyone articulates very well, and it makes me realize that we all are on different sides of the coin. How we want to go about them and how we want to make America a more prosperous place is very different.
Our generation, we are kind of yearning for, let's just be nice to each other. Let's bring back the compassion. Let's have these conversations and actually be authentic with each other. And that's something I do believe, you know, Republicans can do a little bit better at is we need to get back to that compassionate conservatism and letting people know we feel the way that we do because we care.
Yeah, I would have to say, just because it was a topic that we just talked about, getting more Republicans into higher education, I think is really important. Like, Jackie, I think you would make a great professor.
God bless.
We were talking about how you would love to go into like political sociology, and I think that is something that we definitely really need.
All right. Well, thank you all for doing this. You were fantastic. Thank you so much for coming and talking to me and educating me about the youth. I hope you all watch and tell your friends how cool I am.
Of course.
Yay. Very cool.
Right.
Yeah.